All right. Hello. Welcome. Happy Tuesday. No, when what day is it? Where am I? When am I? Hello? What is this? Wednesday. Wednesday, as I'm recording this. Let me see. Do I have any particular programming notes? Yes. So sorry about yesterday. Just had too much going on and something had to give, and it ended up being the stream. Apologies for that. And then Friday, I am traveling. I will be gone a week. I'm not sure. I'm going to try to do some stuff. I mean, I say that with the most sincere belief. I'm going to try to do something. Whether that actually happens or not, very different thing. Hey, Ian. Hey, nothing. We'll see how that goes. But I will be out for next week. Definitely no streams. We'll see if I'm able to put any videos together. If I'm able to do that, I will. If I'm not, I'm not. So expect kind of a long silence. I figure then tomorrow I'll do the Reddit roundup because it'll kind of be my Friday, so to speak. So gonna go with that. And that's about it. And there was a shadow back there of my cat. Last we chatted, we were looking at Errant. I figure I'd go back to Errant. Um, we were looking at exploration, I believe. Let's see a second. So I gotta ask my wife to close the door. The cat opened it, and now I'm hearing all of her daytime. No, nothing says you can't promise to try, but you'll promise to try to try. That's basically where I'm at. Yeah, I'm gonna promise to try to try. I think, and I feel like, gosh, it's been so long. Hope everyone had a great holiday weekend, by the way. I mean, it's not like a worldwide holiday, but if you had Monday off, hope you had a good long weekend. And if you didn't, hope you had a good normal weekend. I think I decided last time to stop at exploration. That's kind of what I have in my notes. That's where I'm going to start. So if there's a little bit, it turns out there's a little bit of overlap with the last stream. Apologies. But that's my recollection. That's what I'm going with now. All right. So we're in the exploration section. First up, we have exploration turn actions. During an exploration turn, the party may perform one significant action, such as moving from one room to another, searching or exploring a room, attempting to force a door open, and so on. So that right now is pretty, I feel like it's pretty standard OSR. It's kind of what I tend to go with, and I think it's a good thing. I know I have said this in other videos. People sometimes want to get into the weeds of, well, how long does this take? And isn't this like 30 seconds? Isn't that just a minute? You can always kind of look at something and think about, well, picking the lock, let's say, okay, well, how long does it really take to pick a lock? Maybe the actual picking of the lock doesn't take that long, but there's getting your tools, checking it out, doing all the stuff around it. And maybe you'd say, okay, but even then, does it take up 10 minutes? No, but we're gonna round everything off. But it works in the party's favor too. And certain actions you could look at easily, I think could take more than 10 minutes, but we're just gonna say they take 10 minutes. And that way you get to keep that nice, orderly, at least behind the scenes kind of mechanic of turns moving, even if sometimes 10 minutes isn't 10 minutes. And almost the 10 minutes part is really less important than the fact is that turns are taking place. But I like thinking in terms of 10 minutes or that investment of time, because then players have to ask themselves, okay, I'm going to invest time in a certain amount of actions. The more time we use up, the more chances of things going wrong, the more chances of things showing up we don't want to show up. So if I'm kind of burning through my resources, if I'm burning through this kind of safe time theoretically that we have, is this important enough for me to do, or should we skip it? And that's a good decision space. I think you want them to be in a dungeon. You don't really, I feel like you don't want your players just to be able to do everything unless they've gone through, they cleared out the dungeon and killed every last thing inside of it, and then saying, okay, now we're going to go inch by inch, fine. But under normal circumstances, kind of first foray circumstances, I think you want them to have to make choices about what to do, and you want them to feel like there's some pressure there. Next up, marching order. Generally, in a 10-foot hallway, errants can stand two abreast. So really, right, you're basically your basic 5-foot squares. Scout can be assumed to be about one room ahead of the company. All encounters and encounter signs are found by the scout, and they make any reaction rolls as necessary. Scouts encountered by NPCs are allowed to make a check to hide. So I think these are basically. Oh, I see. I think you choose one of these. So I was thinking at first that they were thinking about a class, but I guess that I guess we'll look at it and say there are 4 spots you can be in the marching order. One is the scout. You are up ahead. Hey, Terrence. Yes, I am back. I'm back for a couple days and then I'm gone again, but I am back. So for the scout, they're up ahead, and you can this one room ahead. I don't know. That's one way of putting it. I think they really just mean kind of one segment, maybe. So if you think about it in your average turn or like moving turn, basically, I think classically, I think it's 120 feet per turn. So you could then say that maybe the scout is essentially 120 feet away. That way they're looking at anything that's kind of one segment, almost one turn ahead of everybody in terms of turn equaling movement time. I suppose if the rooms were all rooms, you could think of them being in the next room, but maybe that's a way to put it, is they're basically one segment ahead of where the party is in terms of space versus time. So that's whoever's in front of the van. This is the front line. Errants in the front line of the party generally end up in close engagement during combat. They are the first to encounter or spot any hazards or details ahead of the party, such as traps, characters, hidden treasures, and so on, and make any checks pertaining to those if necessary. They also will generally make reaction rolls for any NPCs encountered, assuming that those NPCs are encountered from the front. So you have the scout, who's can be up ahead. I suppose don't have to be. It doesn't say that, there's no idea here that you must put somebody in the scouting position. You generally want one. You want to if you can, but there are times certainly where you just can't afford to have somebody out front like that. Then you have your actual front line, and now we're going to have the main, which is they're saying is the middle rank of the party, will often find themselves stuck behind the front row in an engagement, and so longer weapons such as spears are recommended, as is placing shorter party members in the front. Any hazards or details that might emerge within the party's midst, say from the floor, ceiling, or walls, are within the purview of the characters in the middle rank, and they make any relevant checks or reaction rolls that deal with such. And then finally, the rear. In an engagement, those in the back row will often have to resort to missile weapons, sorceries, and miracles in a combat engagement, though they should take care not to catch their comrades in the crossfire. Placing the tallest party members in the back is generally a good idea. Any hazards or details that encroach from behind the party are the responsibility of the back row, as well as any checks or reaction rolls thereof. Hey, Brian Smith. That's right. Everyone's here. Oh, and I'm giving Melon another try, another go today. So I'm in here. And one thing I've noticed right away that Restream has that Melon does not have is my ability to block and report the hackers right from the chat. So I can't do anything with it right now. It's there. Just have to make do and somehow at some point get Nightbot. Figure out how to train Nightbot better for that. All right, so we've got these 4 positions. They all make sense. If something is coming basically from above or below, in the middle, you're going to have a chance to do it, assuming that, it's kind of an interesting take, right? Because everything, if it's in the floor and the ceiling, everybody's going to have moved across that area. But in terms of if something was waiting for you to get to the middle of you and then strike from above or below, of course, the people in the middle are going to be the first ones to attack. Same thing for the rear. Oh, thanks for reporting it, Brian Smith. Yeah, don't know if it'll do anything, but I appreciate the reporting, because I cannot report. Anything from Melon, at least. Terrence says, I could pick some mods. Laugh out loud. I mean, sure. We don't have to get into this now, but hey, if anybody feels like, I mean, I know a lot of people are in here a lot of the time, but if anyone wants to step up and be a mod, I can't really do much than give you my eternal thanks. But if someone, and I know who you guys are who are in here, if someone wants to pick up that responsibility, and the price was make us all mods. Yeah, that's it. Everybody a mod. I'll have to figure that out. But yeah, ping me if somebody wants to be a mod, if they're going to be hanging around, or if they tend to be hanging around in the chats, and we can do that. No pressure. I do like the idea of having these kind of set up. It's a little bit abstracted. With the scout, we're not worried about exactly how far they are away. We're saying they're kind of far enough away that they're going to get that advanced warning. Front line, I do like that they're also giving you this suggestions, but also kind of saying, like, look, if you're in the front line, you're going to be, I mean, the interesting thing I think too about the scout in the front line is that the social part, because it's easy to say, well, put the big beefy fighters up front. Totally makes sense, right? We're in a 10-foot hallway. We're going to have two across. hey, put those two beefy fighters up there. But then maybe there's someone else. Maybe it's who knows? Maybe it's the rogue. But no, maybe the rogue's a scout. Maybe it's the magic user or the cleric who wants to be the face, who's got that high charisma that wants to be out there. Well, if you want to be out there, you're going to have to be in that front. You can't be in the rear, Mr. Magic User, if you want to have an effect on encountering stuff from up front. So there's a nice little tension of it there. And also, I like saying, hey, if you're in the second row, generally you're going to need longer weapons if you want to point at things. And remember those kinds of kind of a little bit of war gamey tactical element to it. Look, second row, you're going to have a hard time getting at things unless you have long weapons. So you want to be able to poke over the top of your front line. So think about this stuff when you are amassing and putting together your marching order is going to turn out to be. These are good decisions. If you want to be the face of the party, you can't really do it from the back, because those reaction rolls, which are going to determine so much about how these NPCs aren't going to wait for you to run from the back through to the front and say, wait, talk to me. Hey, talk to me. You need to be in front. But if you're in front, well, there are dangers there too. So it's nice because it puts that choice right out there, and it also puts that information in front of the GMs. I think it's great as a player-facing guide, saying, yeah, this is how you want to do it, and this is where you can be, and these are the consequences of where you are. But then also as the GM to say, hey, if the really non-charismatic dwarf and the non-charismatic fighter are up front and something happens, and those are the ones who are going to be rolling those reaction rolls with their modifiers. You shouldn't wait for someone else who is in the back to kind of run forward to take front. It's too late. It's those reaction rolls. They're kind of like your first impression, and you only get one first impression, right? So you got to make it count. Okay, let's see. Ian says, I did a video game live stream the other day, and the only comments I got were spam. Ian, it's a long, slow road. Hit me up if you want. Not that I really, I was going to hit me up for pointers, but I don't have any pointers. It's basically a slog, and hopefully you get to a point where folks kind of stick around and hang out with you like you guys do with me. But other than that, you got to just go through some parts of it where you're basically talking to yourself. You're talking to a little HAL device staring back at you. And yeah, you just gotta kind of push through it, and hopefully folks find you and then they join the chat. Brian Smith says, I really like this laid out so simply. My group was kind of floundering coming up with these tactics organically, but the rear guys are trying to do the social interactions at the front. Yeah, it is. I do like this way. I do like this way of laying out, so you could just have your folks pick front, basically, front, middle, back, and scout. And I think I'll probably adapt this for my game, because I definitely do a marching order. And I definitely have the folks in front, but this is an easy way for them to just kind of say, again, just slightly abstracted, where they are. Sometimes it's handy to know in that kind of main where you are. And so I do like to have my guys just lined up. Okay, it's you, then you, and you. But we usually think of it in single file. But this is very easy. You're in the main, then we could just roll dice to see who's near the front or near the back if it matters. Or somebody could say, I want to be the main, back of the main, fine. Or front of the main, fine. If you have that many people. With my players and their hirelings, tends to be 6 to 8 overall. So there's someone kind of rear guard, there's someone kind of in that front scout position, and then there's, depending on, it's really usually amount of who has the best hit points being up front, sort of thing. And Darren says, put the uggos up front. We need to get some hostile reactions to farm XP. Pretty much. All right, so that is our marching order. On to pace. The rate of movement in exploration turns is expressed by pace, which is represented as a fraction. The numerator determines how many significant locations, e.g. a room, can be traveled, while the denominator represents how many turns that takes. The standard pace is 1 to 1, representing one significant location traveled per turn. Pace is modified by the speed at which the company chooses to travel, as well as factors such as the size of areas and whether they've been previously explored. So kind of keeping with what's been going on before, we're a little bit abstracted, right? So we're not talking about, hey, your scout is 120 feet. We're saying they're one area ahead. And here we get a little bit better idea when they say, when they mention a room ahead, kind of what do they mean? They basically mean in the next significant location, presumably that's in the path of the party. So the party's going south along there, and there's one stretch of basically 120 feet, and if the scout would be pretty much in the next stretch, or if they've made a decision at a T-junction, turn left, turn right, turn whatever, then they would be in that kind of segment. And then you can keep moving segments along. some people may look at this and think like, I want my footage, I want that kind of stuff, which is fine. But this also does work because it's abstracted. It will work for whether you're doing more of a sort of a dungeon kind of point crawl, or if you're doing sort of a 5-room dungeon thing where you're sort of abstracting away the how large things are in feet. You could still talk about locations or maybe even areas. Hey, this area is the crypts. Then the next area is the catacombs. It's okay, the scouts in the catacombs, they're in the crypts, and this is how long it takes to get from here to there, and then you can adjust it. So you have some room, which I think is the intent here to give you. There's room here for different play styles, different ways you want to do things. It's not tied to doing it one specific way, but hopefully will give us tools we can use whatever way we're running our dungeons. All right, so we start off with a 1-to-1 pace. If we slow down, add 1 to the, let's see, the turns pace. So if we go on a slow pace, it ends up being 1-to-2, assuming no other factors. But this does reduce number of event dice rolled to a minimum of 1. Any hazards or points of interest are automatically detected. So that's nice. So essentially, if you go slow, you're reducing the number of event dice you're going to roll, and you're going to detect everything. But of course, it's taking you longer. So then you have that factor in. But if you want to take your time, this is almost a little bit like a take 10 or take 20 in terms of movement. Hey, if you want to go slow, you're going to spot everything, but you're taking essentially twice as long if no other factors, right? Because you start off at 1-1, now you're suddenly going 1-2-1. So instead of 1 turn per area, now you're doing 2 turns per area. And if you go to fast pace, that reverses it, right? You can do 2 turns for one area. Basically, it increases the amount of locations you can travel per turn, but you're going to roll more event dice. You can't map, and you have no idea. You have basically no chance to detect any hazards or points of interest. You're at a not, I don't know if it would be a sprint, but you're at a large, you're at a quick pace. So you have these 2 decision points. Do we go slow? We can easier to map stuff, or anything of interest we're going to pick up. Smaller chance of things happening to surprise us because we're taking our time, but we're taking our time. Or do we go faster? More chances of running into things because we're not taking as much care. We cannot map, and if there's anything there, we're not. This is we got to get out of here, or we got to get to where we're going with speed, so we don't care. We're just hustling. Ian, that's just what Ian says, at a hustle. Yep, exactly. Now, if you have a large area, this is kind of, it's left up to GMs, I guess, to determine what is a large area. You add 1. If it's a huge area, you add 2. If it's an explored area, you add 1 or 2 to the lowering your pace by 1 or by 2 for large or huge areas. But then if you explored areas, you then can increase by 3. So once you've been through someplace and explored it, and I wonder if exploring, if it means something, we'll see. That's something where I wouldn't mind having a little bit of definition. What does it mean to explore? Does it mean you just move through it? Does it mean you've moved through it, but you've detected all points of interest and hazards, something like that? Like, what does it mean to be explored? Because then if you're exploring it, then if you have explored it, then you can move through at a quick pace. Terrence calls it hoofing it. And then he got some others. So you have hustle, boogie, a wiggle, get your wiggle on, a sachet, yeah, and then hoofing it. Yep, those are all good terms. Now we have a resting. We can take a rest. If you spend an exploration turn resting, you may use your armor repair kit to replenish your blocks. Those, remember, so you have basically a damage resistance that gets used up, and then you use armor repair kits to get back, to replenish that damage reduction. So it's good to always keep and I think if I remember being told, the armor repair kits, they are used up. So you have to have a supply of them, and you go through them. It's got, some putty, I'm not sure what else. What do you think? What do you think would be in an armor? I think I asked this before. I really have no idea. I don't know if that's a thing or it's just kind of it's a cool kind of game thing. I don't know if there's something existed, because I usually think of armor being repaired as you got dents and you kind of hammer them back in and maybe buff some scuffs. I don't know. But then I also think of those kind of iron-on denim repair kind of thing. So I'm not wondering, is it some like metal colored putty? What else may be there? Maybe some soldering, so you can kind of solder some kind of tiny little plates. You can kind of solder some plates back into spot. Maybe some extra links of chain to fit in. Oh, look at that. Let's see. Ovaltine Patrol. Hey, Ovaltine suggests a breastplate stretcher. Yes, it could be. And then Brian Smith says tiny mallets, pliers, and leather stuff. Yeah, it could be. Yep. And Ian, going back to travel, talks about how each one will be specified separately in AD&D along with the correct accompanying polearm. Obviously, you must have the correct polearm for the moment. Terrence says, "Fetch my breastplate stretcher. We have located the buffet." Yeah, pretty much. It's always good to have. It's funny because you look at those. Was it Henry VIII? I've seen some different armor sets of Henry VIII, and you could see where he goes from sort of slim, svelte to kind of pudgy, larger. Like how his armor, those breastplates do expand. Oh yeah, and Open Control says every armor period comes with the Allen wrench. Gotta have an Allen wrench, and yes, grommets and Wallaces. Got your grommets, and you have to have your Wallaces. Exactly. All right. So now we're gonna get. I guess we're getting into sums. Where I guess we've been kind of going through, and we've been looking at different actions. So one of the actions here we could spend our exploration turns on. We already had resting. We had moving. Obviously, now we have lock picking. And then another thing says, I don't think you'd be repairing metal, mainly reconnecting rivets, leather straps, etc. Yes, I'm sure that's probably true. Yeah, stuff that's kind of gotten knocked out, busted bands, or maybe you got to scrape something together. Figure out a way to kind of jerry rig it back into place. Okay, so for lock picking a lock requires burglar's tools and selecting the correct lock picking actions in the correct order. Oh, here we go. So you got a little mini game action in here. These actions are twist, tap, and turn. Every lock requires 3 actions to unlock. No action is ever used in a row. Upon selecting the wrong action, the lock will feel stiff. If the wrong action is chosen while the lock is stiff, the lock is jammed and becomes unopenable. In initiative turns, each lock-picking action counts as 1 action. All locks of the same type are opened the same way. If the combination for picking a copper lock is, for example, twist, tap, turn, all copper locks are opened the same way. Terrence mentions gnomish epoxy. All right, so I like this a lot. So really you can't miss 2 in a row. So you have 3 actions. You have to do 3 things. If you get one wrong, it goes stiff. If you get the next one wrong, then you've jammed it up. And you can't open it. I presume if you then get if you have to get the right one, it will get unstiff. So I'm thinking, okay, so let's just say let's go to their example, the copper lock. It's twist, tap, turn. So the first time I come up to it, my thief goes, I don't think I've seen this lock before. I'm going to try a turn. And then the GM goes, yeah, you go to turn and you can feel that lock stiffen up. You feel the lock start to seize up. Okay, I stop. All right, so that turn wasn't turn. Now I have a 50% chance of getting the next ones. But if I'm wrong, then I've broken it. So if I then say tap, which is incorrect also, it was stiffed, another one, now it's jammed. If I use twist, loosen up again, and then I still have to do the next 2. So I like it. I like it a lot. And I like this idea that locks have the same identity. My thinking is that as a player, I would certainly, if I had a rogue, thief, whatever, burglar player, it would be their responsibility to note down, to keep track of these different locks. So I would be encouraged as a GM to have different locks that have different devices or something that sets it apart. And then you could kind of, as a thief, you could have that comes part of your collection of knowledge. It could even be something that you could trade with somebody. You could have a thief then might go to somebody and say, hey, I saw this lock in the dungeon. We didn't need to bypass it that time or whatever, so I left it alone. Maybe you go into town and you research, hey, this is just for simplicity's sake, a copper lock. I don't want to jam it. Maybe I go to the Thieves Guild. If there is a Thieves Guild, maybe I go to Sage. Maybe I find a master thief who knows how to open a copper lock and then I can get that twist, tap, turn order. But it's very easy. There's just 3 things, easy to remember. Yeah, that's really nice. Let's see. Ovaltine Patrol says, do they mean all copper locks in the dungeon or all copper locks in the world? I mean, they don't say, but they don't say in the dungeon. I guess you can do it however you like, but what I would do, Ovaltine Patrol, is come up with, I mean, copper lock is way too simple. So all locks made with copper called copper locks? No. But you could even come up with some names of things. Oh, this is a Stevenson lock. And then the Stevenson lock, once you know what a Stevenson lock is, all you say twist, tap, turn. That's the Stevenson lock. The guy Stevenson invented it, and then other people copied it. And all over the world, when you see a lock that kind of looks like that, it is a Stevenson lock. You could even, if you wanted to, because you might say, well, they might want to, what's the word I'm looking for? They want to disguise what type of lock it is. You could even have some kind of thing where you're going, I need to examine this lock to figure out, see if I can determine what kind of lock it is. Can I get the make? Can I see where Stevenson put his seal or something on there? How can I figure out if this is a Stevenson lock? And then if it is, then I know essentially the formula for Stevenson locks. And if not, I'll have to try to guess it. But once I do have it, then it is. Oh, and Ava says, hey, Ava, here to tell us, stiff remains stiff. So once you've got it, so you really have just 2 tries. Okay. So it doesn't become unstiff if you get it right. You basically get two shots at a wrong answer. The second shot kills the lock. Very cool. And then Brian Smith says, does it mention how a non-thief would use the tools? Only 1 strike before it jams? Yeah, I might go with that, Brian Smith. If you wanted to give someone else a try, yeah. If thieves get 2, maybe instead of it goes stiff, it just goes right to jammed. So a non-thief, if they knew exactly the formula, could get it right. Like if in the case of us, we have our Stevenson lock, and then we don't have a burglar in the bunch, but an NPC burglar told somebody, oh yeah, when you see this lock in there, it's called the Stevenson lock. You got to twist, tap, and turn. And then if they remember it, then they'll be able to do it. But if they don't, they're going to have to get it, either be pretty lucky and get it right, or not. Of course, it doesn't mean you can't, break down whatever it is or just smash the thing open, but the lock is stuck, which I dig it. Very cool. Okay, now we have some stealth actions. Moving silently and unseen is a skill check with a difficulty value equal to the errant's encumbrance. Scouting characters are allowed to make a check to hide reactively when an NPC is encountered. Oh, that's nice. I like that. So if you are up front in that scouting position, you can kind of have that moment where, you think something's seen you, duck in the shadows. But if not, you're done. Terrence says, need a famous locksmith table now. Yeah, you do. You need some famous locksmiths, and then kind of the formulas to their locks. And I could even see something, if you wanted to expand this to have, let's say, more complicated locks for deeper in dungeons. I could see saying, okay, for levels 1 through 4, it's just 3. Levels 5 through 8, now there's a 4th one where it could be twist, tap, tap, turn, or twist, twist, tap, turn, something like that. Same order of things, but now there could be 4, and then more than 9 or more could be, 5, something like that. You could easily extend the system if you wanted to do something and kind of get into, well, what if there was more than 3, right? I think you could do that. But even just with this way, it's very nice, I think. When attempting to move stealthily as a group, one member of the group rolls the check. The difficulty value is equal to the total encumbrance of the group divided by 2. So the more heavier and more stuff you're carting around, the louder you were going to be, which makes sense to me. Factors such as visibility, scent, noisiness of terrain, etc., should be considered when determining position and impact. What is the impact? I guess the impact is if you fail your stealth check. Let's see. Brian Smith says, that's awesome. Going back to the lock picking. A master lock picker can give his notebook of lock combinations scribbled into an apprentice or something. Yep. It could, and that means it could be something that could be in your treasure hoard, right? So it's almost like a scroll for thieves. I mean, I know at some point thieves get the ability to read actual scrolls, but what if there was a scroll, but it had information on some different locks and what you need to open them, or something they found on a body? Maybe there was a thief that made it halfway through the dungeon and got killed, but in his pocket is his little notebook where he was scrolling down the combinations to the different locks that they found. Here we go. Ava says position equals consequence of failure, impact, consequence of success. Thank you. I need to I need to keep those in my mind because I remember we did talk about them in, but I forget. It might be nice, and I know you're going to have. I know there's going to be a nice printed one, but and I don't know if you feel like updating this, but having some of those that are like keywords as opposed to just the words kind of as defined, because here they have specific, position and impact have specific meanings outside of their generic English meanings, is to maybe bold them or do something, just kind of set them out, or maybe capitalize them. Not a big deal. And I know this is kind of just a makeshift version until the folks can get their hands on the real one, but for next time. All right, so now traps. An errant that triggers a trap may make a saving throw to avoid its effects. The base difficulty value for avoiding a trap is equal to the level of the dungeon the trap is located on. If this is not applicable, the guide may set whatever difficulty value they feel is appropriate. I like using the level as a difficulty thing. That just means that naturally just things get harder the further down you go or further into the dungeon you go, which is, to me, is good. Some old traps may have a chance to not trigger. In this case, the guide may roll the die of fate. Disarming or rearming a trap takes a turn. If the method the errants have described for doing so is risky or uncertain, they make a check to see if they are successful. I do like that we talk about it, mentioning rearming a trap, because it may be something that you want to do for whatever reason. Maybe you're running from something and it's like another adventuring party that you're maneuvering about in the dungeon. You're ahead of them. You know they're coming this way. You found this trap. Why not? You had to disarm to get across. Why not rearm it if you can? Harvesting components. Harvesting inert components from flora and fauna, such as fur, teeth, leaves, etc., is generally a trivial matter. Each errant can harvest about 1 slot worth of such components per exploration turn. Harvesting active components, however, such as a spider's poison sac or a psychedelic mushroom, in a manner that preserves their properties is a more delicate task. Doing so, in addition to spending an exploration turn, requires an alchemist kit with space to store them, as well as a skill check. A check to harvest components from a creature has a difficulty value equal to half their threat. An alchemist's kit can hold 4 components. Most plant matter counts as a single component. A component harvested by a creature counts as a number of components equal to half their threat. So you can get stuff, but if you're getting just kind of normal stuff, that's basically trivial. Oh, let's see. Oh, Ava says there'll be a much nicer website with all of that accounted for. Okay, great. And Ava says they're set apart in the text of the book. This is referring back to position and impact. Awesome. So here we go. We got some rules if you want to harvest stuff. Everybody loves to harvest stuff, so it's good to have some rules. And you can hold 4 in your alchemist kit. I suppose you could have multiple alchemist kit if you want to. And finally, collapsed structures. One errant properly equipped with a pickaxe or shovel can dig out about 5 cubic feet of rubble per exploration turn. Without such tools, they can manage about 1 cubic foot per exploration turn. And these are good things to have in there. I'm always fascinated, or I'm always intrigued. What's the word I'm looking for? I guess fascinated is how that players will just kind of tend to give up on stuff like that. Oh, the entrance to the mine you want to get to, it's collapsed. Or the entrance is collapsed. Okay, well, I guess we can't go. And I always want to go, well, no, you probably still can go if you want to spend the time to dig it out. And it might be dangerous, but no, it's not a dead end, right? I think it's, I don't want to always say it's video game logic, because I'm not sure that in olden times people were a lot more active about that. But it tends to be that thing where players will see that and they'll just look at it like, oh, it's a dead end. And not, well, clearly there's an entrance here. Clearly something happened. Clearly we can do something about it. We just have to make our decision that that's what we're going to do and kind of do it. So having this kind of written there, having it presumably in a player-facing spot, means that if you're players, or if you're a player and you read through this, that you might be more likely to say, hey, wait a minute. Oh, this thing's collapsed. Oh, wait a minute. I got a pickaxe. Here, we got 3 hirelings. I got them all pickaxes. We can chop through here. We can dig our way out, or dig our way through, or dig our way in. It's not the dead end that people will do, because I've had people just go like, okay, and they just turn around and walk away, and I have to kind of pull them back. So hopefully something like this written in there, even though it's not necessarily servicing kind of a different way of handling it than I think anyone else. I think there's something to be said for what you make visible, you put out there, because these kinds of texts, they do illuminate kind of possibilities for people. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe we should say, oh, you can role play, you can do whatever you want. That's fine. But oftentimes, players are going to look and kind of look at these things to kind of get the idea of what they can do. So when they see these things about, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can speak Goblin. Really? That's better, I think, for them than the negative of, well, the book didn't say you couldn't speak Goblin, or the book didn't say you couldn't use a pickaxe, but encouraging. Obviously, you can't do it for everything, but I think for things that are somewhat in the wheelhouse of what we think of as adventures, it's helpful. Terrence says, shovels are a legendary quest item. GM never wants to give them out. Yeah. And then Brian Smith says, players are too aware of the meta of it and assume it's a DM trying to communicate to them it's a dead end. Right. Yes. And that's why I think having this in here is good, because then to the point of, like Brian Smith says, of them looking at a dead end, now suddenly it means, wait a minute, maybe we need to go get a pickaxe. Right. Maybe that's all we need to. Because yes, that could be, and that's why I find that those are one of those times where I will throw that out to the players. I will say something like, hey, not to say that this is what you should do, but it's just some dirt and rubble and things. There's absolutely nothing preventing you other than time and effort of, if you want to go digging in there. Not saying you should, not saying it's what you ought to be doing, but you can. But that stuff's hard too, because then I think sometimes players will take that to like, oh, really? That's what we ought to do. When the reality is I'm just trying to let them know about the, just the kind of in general, and not that there's something specifically meaningful in there, but hey, I'll work with them. If they go dig in there and originally it was nothing. I just had like, rubble covered exit. Just, I don't know, cause I just wanted it for whatever reason, and they start digging into it, then I'll figure out what's there. I'll make it work. I'll make it work. I'll let you know. I'll have you know. All right. So did we do initiative yet? Maybe. Not maybe. Brian Smith says, or they might weigh in that moment, that hours of digging versus finding some exciting thing right around the corner. Yeah. I mean, that's, and the idea of like, do we want to pickaxe and dig our way through here 5 cubic feet per round for however many rounds till we break through to what we'd ever know, or something else. That's the kind of decision I want them to make, right? That's totally the decision space that they should be in. Hey, is it worth our time and effort to do this thing? I think for me, it's just that when they just say, they just assume it's something that cannot be done. And so I appreciate that being in there, because then it helps eat away at that assumption. Well, maybe there is something there. We just need to spend that time, or we don't. But yeah, that's the kind of decision I want them to make. Pretty much about everything, right? Is it worth the risk, the time, the effort, all that stuff to do this thing? All right, initiative. Encounter distance and surprise. If not already known, encounter distance is D6 multiplied by 10. So that's interesting right at the bat. So I usually, I guess this depends. We don't know if this is in the dungeon or in the wilderness. I'm guessing this is in the dungeon because we're talking about bright lights. So we can have as close as being 10 feet away. Scary business, because then you're basically in melee. Or if you, and this is another good reason to have the scout. When you have this kind of encounter distance where 60 is the max and 10 is the minimum, I usually like to go like 30 to 180. I think unless, I'm trying to think, if someone's got surprise on you, they can get in closer. I mean, and as much as they can before, it's obvious. There's in dungeon especially, there's nowhere to hide. So if you're hiding, you have to be a certain distance. You're going to be exposed, or it's a hallway, and it's 10 feet wide, and there's no real darkness, so you have to be the nearest kind of thing. But if you're the surpriser, you have more leeway there. And then I'll go to like 120 feet away. But this is interesting. So it's 10 to 60. So it really puts the pressure on having that scout, because then that's the way you're pushing that encounter distance back. Because if your scout is essentially 120 feet away and they get something and the encounter distance is 10 feet, for the rest of the party, they've still got a lot of time to figure something out. Now the scout may be screwed, or they may have to win initiative and then run back as fast as they can, but the main part of the party is saved. Characters aware of another side's position cannot be surprised. That makes sense. bright light, therefore usually negates the possibility of surprise. Generally, if more than half the company is illuminated, that counts as bright light. An errant moving on their own with a candle or deliberately dimmed light source, such as a hooded lantern, may be considered dim light, allowing for surprise. Okay. Then, if there's a chance for surprise, we're going to roll a d6. Oh, okay. So they've basically split up the adversaries and the players. So you're rolling 1d6 for both. So we're not rolling for one side each. So this is a little bit different than, say, something like BX, where you would roll, oh, is the monster surprised? Yes or no. Or the party member surprised? Yes or no. There's one for presumably the adversaries that are NPCs is here that are in this encounter, and then the company. If you roll 1 or 2, the NPCs are surprised. If you roll a 5 or 6, the company's surprised. Now, the one thing I might put in here, and I guess if it's 3 or 4, then nobody's surprised. But the one thing that's missing here that I kind of like is when both companies are surprised. It doesn't seem like in this setup you can have something where both the party and the monsters both surprised, which I kind of like sometimes. Those moments of, two people kind of bumping into each other, almost like, oh my gosh, we didn't expect you. We didn't expect you. So you don't have that here, but I might add that in. I'm not sure where, because I do kind of like this 33% chance of one side getting surprised, 33% of the other chance, and then 33% of neither. Or would the dashes be both or neither? I don't know. I might have like both surprised and neither surprised, kind of one or the other in here. Ava says, surprise equals a free round of combat, so both surprise is the same as none surprise. Okay. All right. I can dig it. Determining initiative. At the start of each initiative turn, one player is called upon to select either odd or even. That player and the guide will each roll a d6 and add them together. If the player called odd or even correctly, the company has won initiative. Otherwise, the other side acts first. An initiative turn proceeds in the following order. See, Terrence says, me and the monster are surprised and embarrassed because we both wore short swords. Yep, pretty much. Damn it, we're wearing the same outfit. So as far as the initiative turn, we have the winning side acts quickly, the losing side acts quickly, then the winning side acts slowly, then the losing side acts slowly. So it seems like we have fast turns and slow turns. First place I saw that was what was it? Shadow of the Demon Lord, I believe, was the first time I saw kind of the quick turn, slow turn kind of thing, which I think is cool. In that game, and we'll see exactly do it. In that game, it was basically acting quickly. You could do one thing. The fast turn, I think, was one thing. Slow turn was your standard. You can do everything. So if you had something you wanted to try to make sure needed to be done, you would spend that quick turn, just do the one thing. If you needed to, move, fire, do something else, whatever. I want to move, attack, blah, blah. Then, you have to take the slow turn. Each initiative turn, a character may choose to act quickly or act slowly. Acting quickly allows the character to make one action. Acting slowly allows the character to make two actions. Free actions, such as picking up or dropping something, do not count as a full action, but a character can generally only do one or two of these per initiative turn. All right, so quickly, one thing, slowly, two things. Movement. An errant speed is equal to their skill minus their encumbrance divided by 4. To move in initiative turns, character makes a movement roll. They roll a number of d4 equal to their speed and multiply the result by 10 to determine how many feet inside or yards outside they may move. E.g., if an errant rolled a 4 on their movement roll, they may move up to 40 feet in that initiative turn. This takes an action. A character can make a movement roll more than once per initiative turn so long as they have available actions. So you can do like a double dash kind of thing. I think the interesting thing here is it's not for granted. You can't take for granted how much you can move because you're going to make a roll, which is interesting. So you can't always say, oh yeah, I can move 40 feet per turn. It's really like you can move up to 40 feet per turn, but you may in fact be moving 20 feet on this turn, 30 feet on the next turn, and so on and so forth on every additional turn, which is a pretty interesting way of doing it. It definitely adds some variability because, like I said, you cannot count on being able to dash however long you can dash. You might get lucky, you might get unlucky. I'd be interested to see how people play that because I could see that being. I mean, part of me still like, oh, this is really cool because everything is variable and you can't count on it. But I can also see, particularly for players, it can be a little frustrating thing because you can't count on it, right? So you're trying to get away. You think, okay, I can do this, and then I can double dash or whatever and get away, and then you could roll poorly and come up short, or very short. So it's kind of an interesting twist. But I tend to like that stuff in my brain, but I'm not sure how they work in the game. Ava, if you have any thoughts on how folks have taken to that in your play testing, I'd love to know, because that's a really interesting way of doing movement. I mean, and that, I guess that's the other thing. Like, you take the slow turn, you move, you think I'm going to move and then attack, and then you roll poorly on your move and you can't get there. So now you have one action left. Do you double move and have to roll again? Do you do something else? I mean, it definitely adds in an interesting kind of decision spot, but I could also see it adding that bit of frustration of that luck coming in and biting you, and, thinking like, geez, I just needed to move, whatever, and I didn't do it, and maybe I've had bad rolls all game, so now I'm kind of just even more frustrated because the dice are jamming me up at every turn. A character's movement in initiative turn need not be continuous. E.g., if an errant can move 40 feet in one initiative turn, they may run 10 feet up to a foe and shove them to the ground, move a further 10 feet up to pick up a cursed amulet on the ground, and then run 20 feet back to join their comrades. Ava says, it's been good. Players usually have about 2 speed, which is enough to average at least 40 feet per turn, but enough for regular actions. But when there's something far away, it becomes tense. Yep, I can see that. That tension, I think, I definitely could feel it. But that could be there. And boy, shoving people, grabbing their cursed amulets, and running away. I like it. A character may also choose to make a step, moving a distance equal to their speed multiplied by 10 in feet or yards. E.g., if an errant has a speed of 2, they could step a distance of 20 feet. This does not take an action, but a character can only step once per initiative turn and may not step the same initiative turn that they make a movement roll, and vice versa. Okay, I see this. So this is kind of a nice touch. So you get that step. That's a kind of nice. So this is, I think, a really important balancing feature. So you have this idea of, okay, I move, and that move is going to be pretty variable. And I don't know if I'm going to get there or not. I don't know, whatever. But if I know the guy's 20 feet away, I don't need to do that. Now I can just take that step and do it. So I can take the step, which is safe, or I can take the move, which is unsafe. So I like that. Thumbs up from that to me. To me, that's a good mitigating factor into that movement. So yeah. So now if you want to take that kind of big move, yeah, you've got some chance of failure and whatever, because you don't move as much as you think, but that's the chance you don't have to take. If you're moving somewhere reasonable, you're probably going to get there in a step, and you can do it. But you can't like step move or move step, and you can't step. So you kind of got to make that choice. A character with a speed of 0 cannot step, and as an action can move 10 feet or yards. Difficult terrain reduces the distance of any movement by an amount equal to its rating multiplied by 10. E.g., any movement on an area of difficult terrain with a rating of 2 would be reduced by 20 feet, unless that character has a method of movement that obviates that particular difficult terrain. Some examples of difficult terrain follow. So muddy would be 1, loose rocks 2, stepping stones 3, waist deep water 4, swimming 5, molasses 6. I think I played an Into an Odd game where there was like a truck of molasses spilled in the street. And I remember thinking it was just like I don't know if it was like a random thing or plan, but it had nothing to do with what we were doing. And I think it was that point where I kept wondering, why is so much stuff happening in this town? Because we'd already gone through 3 or 4 different scenarios. I think at that point I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave the truck of molasses alone. Why am I messing with that? Why do I want to mess with that? I don't know. Attacking. To attack, a character chooses a target within range and rolls their damage die, reducing their target's hit points by the amount rolled. While attacking, character can attempt a gambit, such as tripping or disarming their target. To do so, they reduce their rolled damage by a given amount. Their target then makes a saving throw with a difficulty value equal to the amount their attacker's damage was reduced by. If they fail, the gambit was successful. If they succeed, they may immediately make a counterattack. Attacking with a ranged weapon, if a foe is within melee range, impairs the attack 1 step. An errant may only make 1 attack action per initiative turn, though the violent may make multiple attacks as part of this attack action. An errant may not make an attack action in the same initiative turn they cast a sorcery or perform a miracle, and vice versa. Okay, so the gambit things like tripping, disarming. So we would have rolled. So I guess we would. I assume we would have to say before we rolled, or maybe okay, I'm going to attack and I want to disarm them, and I would assume you have to roll that before you know if you succeed or fail. If you succeed, do you choose how much the damage is rolled by? So then you see, okay, I succeeded and I did 4 damage, so I'm gonna do damage 1, gambit 3, maybe. And then the target will make a saving throw, and the difficulty value would be 3. I think that's how it's supposed to work. It's cool. I like it. I mean, I do appreciate the fact that you can't. So, and maybe you'd say this is right or wrong, depending on what the gambit is, but that it reduces your damage. You still want to roll a lot of damage if you're going to do a gambit, because then it gives you a lot to, and you can choose. If I do damage 4, I can choose to do a gambit 1, damage 3. I'm guessing I can choose. And he was like, I'll explain it. So it's cool, but the order, I guess I'm curious for Ava what the order of gambiting is. All right, here we go. So Ava says, you roll a 6 damage on your D8. You say, I'll reduce the damage by 3 to try to trip. The enemy has to make a difficulty value 3 saving throw to avoid tripping, and they take the 3 damage. Yeah, I think I got that. I got that right. So it's your choice. Oh, there's no hit. Oh, okay. There's no hit rolls. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, that's my fault, Ava, because I keep coming back to this after pausing, and so I'm get disjointed. Okay. I got you. But I do like that. I do like that. So you're gonna choose how much to do, how much to change into the gambit, so you can do stuff. I think the only thing I would do here, maybe, and this is one of those things I always think about, because this is where I get, unless I get messed up, I am betrayed by my experiences in really in 3rd edition. The spamming of these kind of gambit type moves and what these kind of gambits could do with somebody who's not afraid to just, do something like become like, I'm going to be Mr. Trip Attack Master kind of thing. It would be interesting, or, at what point does something become more than a gambit, or become, I don't know, like, tripping is good, disarming is good. Like there's something, I think I might want, what I think would be interesting, I guess is what I'm saying, is to come up with a menu of at least common gambits, and then how much you have to invest to get up there. So let's say, okay, tripping is 2, maybe I want disarming to be 4, something like that, so that it kind of, you can, as the GM, you can kind of set that balance where you want it to be, maybe. But of course, as Ava points out, that's what the counterattack risk is for, because yeah, if you whiff on the gambit, then yeah, they get to counter you. So you got that. Let's see, reactions. Whenever any die rolled as part of an attack rolls a 1, the target of that attack may immediately take an action. Oh, I like that. Enhance and impair. And in ideal situations, when an attack is more effective, it may be enhanced. Enhance. Conversely, in situations when an attack would be less effective, it may be impaired. I don't have a Blade Runner-esque sound effect for impaired. Sorry about that. Brian Smith says, heroic deeds, battle master maneuvers, but split out as separate proficiencies you can invest in. Brian Smith, maybe not quite that. Yeah, that might be more than I want. I think maybe a bit more than I'm looking for. I mean, there's a whole argument, and I know folks will make the argument that, hey, you don't need any of these kinds of gambit type mechanics, just role play it out. But I think, and I'm not saying they're wrong, because they're not wrong. You certainly can role play it out. But I do think, particularly as a player, there's something nice about having some mechanical kind of certainty that you can make certain investments and they have certain chances and certain kind of outcomes that you can count on, and that you're not reliant on the GM to go with you there. And it's very easy, and maybe I fall afoul of looking at it as like, well, what if I'm playing with a really cruddy GM, or I'm playing with really cruddy players that are up to abusing all this stuff? Which, fair enough, mea culpa. I think I think we all come from our own experiences, but that's kind of how I look at it. I think sometimes those systems that rely a lot on the GM being magnanimous and being generous and just being open to anything is fine when you have a wonderful, great GM. But a lot of times in the real world, practically speaking, everyone has their soft spots, everyone has their blind spots, everyone has those things that they just are adamant about. And when you run into those kind of things, and the rules are basically just, well, the GM's just going to kind of make the rule, the GM's going to make the rule on, as a player, it doesn't feel that great. And I think sometimes that gets lost track of when people talk about, well, what are they? You can just role play everything out. Well, yeah, you can, but then you're really relying on the GMs at Arbiter to be really where they're supposed to be. And frankly, most of us, I would put myself in the same boat, aren't always in that spot. And when we do see things differently that maybe are in the way, they're not favorable to that. If you have a mechanic, it kind of is there for you. It gives you some security as a player. You know, Brian Smith says, I think it's always kind of cool to have some weird list of moves you get to pick from the other characters. Pick from that other characters don't have, and they have their own cool things. Yep, absolutely. I agree with that, Brian Smith. And nothing says that is true, but I've yet to see a rule system that can make it fun to play with a cruddy DM. That's true. Nothing. There's no doubt that no system is going to is cruddy GM proof. But I think that mechanics, I think sometimes people look at it and like and just about any mechanic is bad because why do we need it? The GM can just figure it out. But some GMs don't want to figure it out. Some GMs want a mechanic as much as the players. And I think for the players, there's a little bit of that security blanket, a little bit of that knowing like, okay, I know there's some kind of objectiveness that we know that we can kind of count on. And I think that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. All right, back to this because let's see if I can, oh my gosh, already at the top of the hour. Errant says, pretty terrible with meta currents, things like that, and for the mechanics to dole them out. I freaking forget most of the time. Oh yeah, I can see that. Ava commented to Brian that they were skipped. I'm sure I have skipped stuff. All right, so let's try to get through. Boy, there's a lot here. I'm not even gonna make it through this whole section, unfortunately. All right, let me just see this enhance and impair, and then I'll call it a stream. When an attack is enhanced, the attacker rolls a larger damage die indicated by how many steps it is enhanced. If an attack is enhanced one step, the attacker rolls 2 damage die one size larger. For example, a D8 would become a D10. If it is enhanced 2 steps, it becomes 2 sizes larger, a D8 to a D12. If an attack is impaired, the attacker rolls a smaller damage die, also indicated by how many steps it is impaired. If it's impaired 1 step, a D8 becomes a D6. Impaired 2 steps, a D8 becomes a D4. Damage dice are enhanced or impaired along the scale. 1 to D4 to D6 to D8 to D10 to D12 to D20, or going down from D20 back to 1. Enhancement and impairment cancel each other out on a one-to-one basis. If multiple instances of enhancement or impairment would occur, add them together. A character using an improvised or makeshift weapon, a chair or shovel, has their damage die impaired 1 step. A character fighting unarmed has their damage die impaired 2 steps. Enhancement and impairment affect all dice rolled for damage as part of an attack. That's cool and also easy. Let's see. All right, I'm going to do this real quick. Conditions such as being frightened, blinded, paralyzed, or poisoned alter the character's capabilities in a variety of ways. This is left to the guy's discretion, but a character suffering a condition is likely to have their attacks impaired and attacks against them enhanced. So we already have this mechanic of pushing dice up steps, pulling dice down steps, and now all these different things can work on those, which I think is very cool. And it's easy to use on kind of anything that uses dice like that you want to use it on. A condition lasts until it is countered or until a specific duration elapses. Morale. NPCs have a morale rating between 2 and 12. A guide may choose to have an NPC that encounters more danger than expected, whether that be a foe or a retainer, make a morale roll. They roll 2d6. If the result is higher than the morale, the NPC will flee, retreat, surrender, or parlay. It's pretty much straight out of your kind of BX style. Ooh, a lot going here for death. All right, so I'm going to end it before we get to death. Death. We'll have to wait for the next one. Hey, thanks so much, Ava, for hopping in and correcting me or I've gone astray. Unfortunately, as I've said multiple times, apologies, for that. But because I kind of read, then I have to put it down and come back. Things are forgotten or misremembered. So I appreciate your ability to have hopped in on a couple of these and corrected me where I have wandered astray. As Brian Smith says, next time on the stream, death. Exactly, but death. We'll probably have to wait almost 10 days or something like that, really, because it's gonna be March before I get back to that. I can't even see what Brian Smith put. Oh, there you go. Some skull emojis. And Ava says, "Hey, I'm all good. There's definitely deficiencies in text too." Yeah, I mean, it's just been Ava. I appreciate that you put this out there. So that is awesome. All right, folks. So, like I said before, it's going to be a while before I come back. So tomorrow, Thursday, I will do the OSR Reddit Roundup. That's usually on Friday because Friday I will be traveling and I will be gone until the following Friday. And then, of course, I don't usually stream on the weekends. So unless I get some kind of crazy hair up and stream, it'll then be the Monday next after that. So it's going to be a bit. Hey, Mark. Yeah, go back to the front of the stream and catch up. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. See you, folks. If you give a thumbs up on your way out, I'd appreciate it. And if you feel like subscribing and you're not subscribed already, appreciate that too. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, night, weekend, whenever you're watching or listening to this. Cheers, everybody. And I will talk to you later.